You killed my partner!
The coffee cup trembled slightly in Marcus Hale's hand as the first light of dawn spilled across his kitchen. Somewhere down the street, a lawn sprinkler hissed to life, mixing with the soft sound of birds waking up. Shadow padded over, tail brushing against his leg, eyes bright, waiting for their morning walk. "All right, boy," Marcus murmured with a faint smile, setting his mug down. "Let's go stretch these old bones." They stepped out into the calm of suburban Atlanta. The neighborhood looked alive but peaceful. Kids riding bikes before school, a mail truck rumbling past, a woman watering her plants and waving hello. Marcus nodded back politely. From the outside, he looked like any quiet man living a simple life. But behind those steady eyes lived years of sand, blood, and silence. The ghosts of Afghanistan still following him like shadows he couldn't bury. Shadow had been there too, trained to detect danger long before it came. Even now, the dog moved with quiet precision, scanning corners, pausing when a sudden sound broke the rhythm. Marcus inhaled deeply, the smell of fresh cut grass mixing with distant rain. Peace. It almost felt real. He stopped by a park bench, threw Shadow a stick, and watched him run across the dew-covered grass. Children laughed nearby, their voices innocent and carefree, a sound Marcus both loved and envied. A neighbor called out, "Morning, Marcus! How's the big guy?" "He's good," Marcus replied, tossing the stick again. "Still faster than me," Shadow barked once, proudly dropping the stick at his master's boots. Marcus knelt, rubbing the dog's neck, his voice soft. "You saved me once, buddy. Guess you're still keeping me alive." For a moment, the world felt right again. Then, a distant wail of sirens cut through the calm. Marcus froze mid-motion. His hand instinctively tightened around the leash. The sound wasn't close, but it stirred something deep inside, the reflexes of a soldier who'd learned to listen before acting. He exhaled slowly, forcing the tension away. "Just another day," he whispered. They started back toward home, passing quiet driveways and trimmed hedges. The siren faded, replaced by the gentle hum of morning. But Marcus couldn't shake the unease pressing at the edges of his thoughts. That strange intuition soldiers get before storms. Shadow's ears twitched first. Then came the crunch of tires. A police cruiser turned onto the street, slowing as it approached Marcus's house. Inside, two young officers argued, one gripping the wheel tightly, the other gesturing toward a clipboard. Marcus watched them in silence, unaware that this ordinary morning walk was about to become the moment that shattered everything he had left. "Control your dog." The shout ripped through the morning air like a warning shot. Marcus turned sharply, heart jumping. Shadow had barked once, sharp, protective, instinctive. The black shepherd stood rigid at Marcus's side, ears up, tail low, eyes locked on the two police officers now rushing toward them. "Easy," Marcus said firmly, lowering a hand toward Shadow's neck. "He's trained. He's not a threat." But Officer Reynolds didn't hear him, or didn't care. His hand hovered over his holster, finger twitching with nerves disguised as authority. His partner, Officer Blake, younger and visibly uneasy, whispered, "Reynolds, maybe we got the wrong—" Reynolds cut him off. "Shut it. Dispatch said a man with a large dog. This fits." Marcus stepped forward slowly, hands raised. "Listen carefully. You're at the wrong address. There's no burglary here. I live here." His voice was calm, measured, the voice of a man used to diffusing danger. Reynolds's jaw tightened. "Then why's the dog acting up?" Shadow shifted closer, sensing Marcus's rising tension. The leash pulled slightly. A flash of sunlight caught the officer's badge. The air thickened, seconds stretching long enough to feel eternal. Marcus tried again. "Officer, please. Stand down. He's—" A rustle came from the neighbor's bushes, a squirrel darting out. Shadow's head turned, just a flinch, A split-second movement. The gunshot cracked before Marcus could even shout his name. Shadow jerked, stumbled forward, then collapsed at Marcus's boots. The sound echoed down the quiet suburban street, bouncing off mailboxes and windows. For a moment, nothing moved. Marcus froze. His ears rang. The world went hollow. Then, Shadow? His voice broke. He dropped to his knees, gathering the dog in trembling arms. Warm blood spread against his hands. Shadow's eyes, once alert and alive, dimmed slowly, still fixed on his master. No, 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 Marcus whispered, pressing his forehead to Shadow's fur. Stay with me, boy, please. Reynolds holstered his gun, exhaling hard as if it were over. He should have kept the mutt leashed. Blake stammered, Sir, he didn't. There's no— Quiet. Reynolds snapped. He looked around, realizing neighbors had started to peek from behind curtains. Let's clear out before this becomes a scene. Marcus didn't move. His breath came in shallow bursts. The sound of Shadow's last exhale left a silence heavier than any battlefield. Reynolds muttered under his breath as he turned toward the car. It was just a dog. Marcus looked up slowly. His face was pale, eyes empty. Then something deeper flickered behind them. The calm soldier was gone. What remained was something colder, sharper, buried, but not broken. Shadow lay still in his arms, Marcus whispered, voice shaking but deadly quiet. You made a mistake. And the world would soon learn how costly that mistake was. Rain fell hard, cold, and merciless, like the sky itself was grieving. Marcus's hands were blistered, caked in mud, gripping the shovel until his knuckles bled. The small backyard had turned into a pool of brown water, but he kept digging, each motion slow, deliberate, silent. No words, no tears, only the dull thud of metal hitting soaked earth. Shadow's body lay wrapped in Marcus's old military jacket nearby, the one lined with faded patches from missions no one remembered anymore. He paused for breath, the rain tracing lines down his face, mixing with dirt and blood. Neighbors watched from behind their windows, pale faces flickering in the dim light. One man stepped halfway out with an umbrella, then froze. The memory of sirens and gunshots was still too fresh. Fear ruled the street now. Nobody wanted trouble with the police. Marcus looked up once, locking eyes with the man. No words were exchanged, just a silent acknowledgement between guilt and grief. The man retreated inside. Marcus turned back to the grave and lowered Shadow in with both arms, careful as if tucking in a child. The medal on his chest, his Distinguished Service Cross, glinted under the gray light. Slowly, he unclipped it, staring at it for a long moment. This was yours too, boy, he whispered. His voice cracked for the first time. He placed the medal on Shadow's chest and stepped back, burying him inch by inch until the jacket disappeared beneath the rain-soaked soil. When the last shovel of dirt fell, Marcus stood still, chest heaving, staring down at the mound. Rest now, he murmured. You served better than most men I knew. He went inside, stripped off his wet clothes, and sat in the dark living room. The house felt hollow. The leash still hung on the wall. The bowl was still full. He reached for the coffee mug he'd left that morning, cold now, untouched, and finally let his head fall into his hands. A knock broke the silence. Marcus opened the door to find a woman standing in the rain, holding an umbrella and a small notebook. She was mid-30s, sharp eyes softened by empathy. Mr. Hale, I'm Tanya Brooks with the Atlanta Herald. I saw what happened yesterday. He said nothing. I want to help you get justice, she continued gently. People need to know what they did. Marcus's voice was flat, almost lifeless. Justice doesn't work for people like us, Miss Brooks. It never has. She hesitated, then nodded, understanding the weight behind his words. If you change your mind, I'll be around. She left her card on the step and walked away, the sound of rain swallowing her footsteps. Hours passed. The rain slowed. Marcus sat by the window, staring at the grave through the mist. The mail slot clinked. A single white envelope slid onto the floor. He picked it up. The police department's seal gleamed on the corner. After review, the shooting was justified. Marcus read it twice. No anger, no shock, just silence. Then he lit a match, dropped it on the letter, and watched the paper curl into black ash. The flames reflected in his eyes, cold, steady, and unblinking. The echo of Marcus's boots filled the hallway of the Atlanta police precinct. He wore his full military uniform, pressed, precise, and decorated with medals that caught the fluorescent light. Conversation stopped as he passed. Officers turned, some out of respect, others out of unease. He walked straight to the front desk. "I need to speak with Chief Donnelly," he said, his voice calm but heavy, like a man holding a storm inside. The desk sergeant blinked, unsure how to respond. Do you have an appointment, sir?" Marcus's gaze didn't waver. "I'm not here for an appointment." Within minutes, he stood before the chief's office. Donnelly, a man with gray hair and tired eyes, looked up from a desk buried in reports. "Mr. Hale, I've been expecting you," he said, his tone rehearsed, almost sympathetic. Marcus remained standing. "Then you know why I'm here." The chief sighed, setting his pen down. "Mr. Hale, this was a tragic misunderstanding. Our internal review concluded that the officers followed proper protocol under perceived threat. Protocol doesn't justify murder," Marcus cut in, voice trembling but contained. Donnelly's eyes flicked to the medals on Marcus's chest. "You of all people should understand split-second decisions." Marcus stepped closer, his shadow stretching across the desk. "I understand discipline. I understand control. And I understand that your officer fired on a restrained animal while I was standing still, unarmed. That's not a decision. That's fear dressed as authority." The chief leaned back, expression unreadable. "I'm sorry for your loss, truly. But there's nothing more we can do." The words landed like a verdict. "There is nothing more we can do." Marcus turned slowly, fighting the urge to let his rage speak for him. Across the hallway, Officer Reynolds stood near the lockers, whispering something to another cop. A smirk tugged at his mouth as he muttered loud enough for Marcus to hear, "Guy's losing it over a dog." Marcus froze mid-step. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. For a split second, the soldier in him surfaced, calculating distance, timing, and threat. But then he inhaled sharply, steadying himself. "Not here," he whispered under his breath. "Not like this." He continued toward the door, his back straight, his silence louder than any outburst. As he reached the exit, a young desk officer, barely out of the academy, caught his arm. "Sir," she whispered quickly, glancing around. "You didn't hear this from me." She slipped a small USB drive into his palm and walked away before he could reply. Marcus looked down at it, water from his coat dripping onto the polished floor. The faint hum of chatter returned behind him, but his focus was elsewhere now, on the small flash drive resting in his hand like a spark waiting to ignite something much bigger. He tucked it into his jacket pocket and stepped back into the cold air outside, where justice no longer lived in courtrooms, but in secrets someone wanted buried. The glow of Marcus's laptop screen lit the dark room. Rain tapped against the window, echoing the unease in his chest. The small USB drive, the one slipped to him by the young officer, rested beside the keyboard like a loaded weapon. He hesitated for a moment, fingers hovering above the keys. Then he plugged it in. A folder appeared. Body cam, incident, MP4. He clicked. Static filled the screen before the image sharpened. Officer Reynolds's body cam. Time-stamped the morning shadow died. The footage showed Marcus standing calmly on his porch, hands raised, voice steady. Shadow sat beside him, tail low, ears alert, but not aggressive. "Sir, please step back," Reynolds barked, his tone already defensive. Marcus's recorded voice replied, calm and even. "This is my house. There's been a mistake." Reynolds shifted his stance, hand trembling near his holster. Blake, the rookie, looked uneasy. "Reynolds, maybe," before he could finish. The gunshot exploded through the speakers. Shadow fell instantly. Marcus's real-life breath hitched. He paused the video, staring at the frozen frame, his best friend lying still, eyes open. He pressed play again. Reynolds muttered, "It was just a dog." The footage abruptly cut to black. Marcus frowned and rewound it. Same abrupt stop. Someone had trimmed the file. Evidence had been tampered with. He exhaled sharply and grabbed his phone. "Tanya," he said when she answered. Her voice was cautious. "Marcus, what's going on?" "I have proof," he said quietly. "Body cam footage. It shows everything." There was a pause, then, "That's dangerous. If this was hidden, it means someone high up doesn't want it seen." "I don't care anymore." "Marcus," she said, voice firm now. "Listen to me. If you release this, they'll come after you. They protect their own. You're a soldier. You know how systems like this bury people." Marcus's jaw clenched. He looked again at the screen, at the blurred frame where his world ended. "They already took everything I loved," he said, voice low but final. "What else can they take?" Tanya sighed. "Then let's do it smart. Meet me tomorrow morning. I'll bring a copy to my editor." He nodded, though she couldn't see it. "Tomorrow." After the call, he saved the footage to an external drive, hid it beneath the floorboard under his bed, and shut the laptop. Night fell heavy and silent. Marcus drifted into uneasy sleep. Dreams fractured with images of Shadow running freely through desert dust. A crash jolted him awake. He shot up, heart racing. The door was ajar, the lock splintered, drawers pulled open, papers scattered. The laptop, gone. The original USB, gone. He turned toward the wall and froze. Spray painted in jagged, dripping red letters, "Stay quiet." For the first time since Afghanistan, Marcus felt the old fire return. Not fear, but purpose. Someone had declared war on his silence, and he was done being quiet. The flashing red and blue lights outside painted the walls of Marcus's living room in violent color. He sat perfectly still in the darkness, the soft hum of sirens in the distance matching the pulse in his veins. On the table in front of him lay his old service pistol, unloaded, but heavy with memory, and beside it, Shadow's collar, the metal tag glinting in the faint streetlight. He ran his thumb over the engraved letters. Shadow. K9 Unit. The silence around him felt suffocating, every breath camera and shallow. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from the sheer weight of holding himself back. He reached for his phone and dialed Tanya. She picked up on the second ring, voice low and cautious. "Marcus? I can't do this anymore," he said quietly. "They came into my home, Tanya. Took everything. I keep hearing his bark. Every time I close my eyes." His voice cracked, the sentence dissolving into silence. Tanya's tone softened. "Marcus, listen to me. Shadow wasn't just your partner. He was your anchor. You told me he followed orders even under fire, right?" He nodded, staring blankly ahead. "He did. Always. Even when I couldn't think straight." "Then think of what he'd do right now," she said gently. "He wouldn't attack. He'd protect." "You taught him that." Marcus closed his eyes, forcing his breath to steady. The memories came uninvited. Afghanistan, the sandstorm ambush, Shadow leaping between him and gunfire, saving 3 men before they even saw the threat. He'd seen horror before. But this hollow grief, was worse than any battlefield. "I wanted to make them pay," Marcus admitted, voice trembling. "I wanted to see them feel what I feel." "I know," Tanya said softly. But if you do that, they win. They'll call you unstable, another angry vet. But if you expose the truth, they'll never be able to silence you. The words sank in slowly. Marcus stared again at Shadow's collar, the edges warm from his hand. Loyalty, restraint, protection. That was the code they lived by. He exhaled, the tension leaving his shoulders. No guns, he murmured to himself. No blood. Truth only. Good, Tanya whispered, because truth scares them more than bullets ever will. A faint smile crossed his lips, the first in days. Then let's scare them. They ended the call, and Marcus sat in the stillness, feeling the weight of decision settle over him like armor. The storm inside him hadn't vanished, but it had shape now. Focus. He wasn't a broken soldier anymore. He was a survivor with a mission. The phone buzzed again, interrupting his thoughts. A new voicemail. Unknown number. He pressed play. A distorted voice crackled through. We have the uncut footage. Meet us at midnight. Dockside Warehouse, Pier 9. Come alone. Marcus froze, pulse spiking. Outside, thunder rumbled, low, distant, like a warning. He stood, holstered his weapon, and whispered into the empty room. This time, we finish it, Shadow. Rain slicked the concrete at Pier 9. Streetlights flickering against the fog that rolled off the water. Marcus stood alone, coat collar up, hand resting near his sidearm but not on it. Midnight air bit through his breath. Quiet, except for the creak of an old warehouse door swinging open. A man stepped from the shadows. Older, limping slightly, his badge long retired but still hanging around his neck. Marcus Hale? The stranger asked, voice low, gravelly. Marcus nodded once. You're the one who called. The man looked around, then handed him a small hard drive wrapped in plastic. Name's O'Donnell. Used to work internal affairs. I kept something I wasn't supposed to. Marcus studied him carefully. Why? O'Donnell's eyes burned with guilt. Because I watched them twist it. The chief ordered the body cam cut. Said it would protect the department. But what Reynolds did, that wasn't protocol. That was panic. Marcus's jaw tightened. Show me. Inside the warehouse, O'Donnell connected the drive to an old laptop. The footage began, unedited, raw, and devastating. Marcus saw himself standing calm in his yard, Shadow's tail low, posture relaxed, Reynolds shouting, gun trembling. Then, the crack of a shot, Shadow falling. No warning, no threat. Marcus's breath caught, the sound of that shot echoing again in his head. He gripped the edge of the table as the next part played. The chief's voice, cold and deliberate. Cut the lead-up. No one needs to see that part, O'Donnell muttered. They buried it before it could ever reach the review board. Marcus's eyes filled, but didn't break. Then we unbury it. Minutes later, Tanya arrived, hood pulled low against the rain. She glanced at the screen and froze. My God, this changes everything. Marcus handed her the drive. You said truth scares them more than bullets? Time to prove it. They returned to her small newsroom, lights dim, tension thick. Tanya uploaded the footage through an encrypted server, her fingers trembling as she clicked submit. For a long moment, the three of them sat in silence, watching the progress bar crawl. Then it was done. The file was out. Unstoppable. Within hours, the video spread like wildfire. From local news to national headlines, protests ignited downtown, crowds chanting Shadow's name beside Marcus's photo in uniform, candles, posters, fury, and hope filled the streets. Tanya looked over at him, voice barely above a whisper. You did it, Marcus. He shook his head slowly. We did. For the first time since the shooting, Marcus felt something other than pain. Purpose. Shadow's death wasn't in vain, but the moment didn't last. Sirens wailed again, this time closer. Tanya's phone buzzed. A panicked voice shouted through, They're coming! The department's raiding your office. Marcus turned to the window. Red and blue lights reflected in the glass. By the time they reached Tanya's newsroom, Marcus was gone. Hours later, police found his front door open, swaying in the wind, the house empty. The coffee on the counter still warm. Breaking news tonight. The anchor's voice trembled on every screen in America. Former Delta Force operative Marcus Hale is presumed dead after a house explosion in Atlanta. Photos of the wreckage flashed across the screen. Fire, smoke, silence. The world saw the ashes. Tanya Brooks saw a lie. She stared at the broadcast, fists trembling, whispering to herself, "No, he's not gone. He's too careful for that." 3 days later, her phone buzzed. A new live stream appeared online. No location tag, no traceable IP. The thumbnail froze on a familiar face. Marcus Hale. His eyes carried the weight of 1,000 storms, but his voice was steady as stone. "They thought they could silence me," he said softly. "They killed my friend. They lied to my people. But you can't kill the truth." Behind him, a plain flag fluttered. The American flag folded beside Shadow's collar. The world watched as he played the full, uncut footage again, this time alongside the chief's voice, his orders, his cover-up, his betrayal. The reaction was instant. Police lines broke under public fury. Protesters flooded the City Hall steps. The chief resigned within hours. Officers Reynolds and Blake were arrested under national scrutiny. Justice, long denied, finally began to move. In the final minutes of the stream, Marcus looked into the lens, eyes wet but calm. "I didn't fight this war for revenge," he said. "I fought it for truth, for every voice the system tried to bury. Shadow didn't die in vain. He was loyal to the end, so I'll honor him the same way." Weeks later, the camera followed him through the quiet cemetery behind his home. A small wooden cross marked Shadow, my brother in arms. Marcus knelt, brushing the dirt gently, whispering, "We fought, buddy. We won." He didn't smile, not fully, but the peace in his voice said more than words could. Months passed. The world moved on, but Marcus didn't disappear. He transformed. Under a simple signboard painted by hand, the gates of a new shelter opened. Shadow's Haven. For those who can't speak for themselves. Dozens of rescued dogs barked and ran through the fields, free again. Marcus watched them with quiet pride. Tanya stood beside him recording. Her voice trembled as she asked, "You ever think about leaving all this behind?" Marcus shook his head, eyes fixed on the dogs. "I already did. This is home now." The camera panned wide. The man, the shelter, the peace carved from pain. And then, the narrator's voice rose gently. "Some heroes fight wars abroad. Others fight them at home, in silence, with love stronger than bullets." Soft music swelled. "If you believe justice still matters," the voice concluded, "share Marcus's story.